Among the many deities present in Buddhism, Kannon Bodhisattva is by far one of the most commonly recognized in Japan, along with Jizo and Hotoke. Though initially male, Kannon has 33 different avatars that generally are depicted as females throughout East Asia. Our book further describes Kannon Bosatsu as a deity, quote, who listens to the prayers of worshippers and offers them helping hands with compassion, and is one of the most widely worshipped deities in Japan, end quote. According to the Princeton University Art Collection, quote, Kannon, adapted from the Chinese name Guanyin, is an important figure in the Mahayana Buddhist tradition. Bodhisattvas are enlightened beings who generally reject Buddhahood to remain in the 6 realms of transmigration, where they can allay suffering and help others to attain enlightenment, end quote. This core component of striving to alleviate suffering and other functions led to Kannon earning the title, quote, Goddess of Mercy and Compassion, end quote. Upon hearing this name, one can't help but think of other females in history who have earned the title, Harbinger of Mercy or Compassion, specifically Our Lady of Mercy, Mary, Mother of God, a hidden figure of hope in Japan for believers when Christianity first arrived in Japan and were subsequently faced with persecution. Christianity in Japan, an article written by Asakawa in the Atlantic Magazine Journal, states that, quote, the history of Christianity in Japan is divided into 2 distinct periods, separated by a long interval. The first period began with the coming of Francis Xavier and 2 other Jesuit missionaries in 1549, and ended with the rigorous enforcement from about 1640 of measures for excluding Japan almost completely from foreign trade and absolutely from the alien faith, end quote. Those who refused to comply with the Tokugawa decree during this 300-year period faced great persecution at the hands of civil authorities. These clips are from the movie Silence, which describes this period of Christian persecution in Japan. Alternatively, individuals who bowed to the demands of Tokugawa were to register with the Buddhist temple in addition to denouncing the Christian faith. However, many maintained their faith both in secret and in plain sight through the Buddhist deity Kannon. Though Kannon Bodhisattva is clearly Buddhist in origin and a notable deity in Japanese Buddhism, she ended up becoming one of the central images that allowed Christians to venerate Mary, Mother of God, in public in accordance with the decree that they practiced Buddhism at the time. This was possible by the merging of Kannon and Maria to form a Kirishitan Kannon known as Maria Kannon. Not only did the symbolism of compassion, mercy, and hope of Kannon and Maria align, the physical attributes of the respective statues were uncanny. Since there are 33 different avatars after all, Maria Kannon likewise has different aspects for every statue that is created in her likeness. The similarities that already exist, however, are easy to point out. Most obviously, Mary is female, so this aspect means that a Maria Kannon will be clearly female as opposed to the sometimes and somewhat androgynous apparitions of Kannon Bodhisattva. Furthermore, just as we learned about the different mudras, the positioning of hands is also key for the Maria Kannon. Either her hands or a hand might be gesturing compassionately over the people in a benevolent manner. Her palms may also be pressed together in a prayer pose. And finally, she may also be holding something. This can often be an inanimate object unrelated to Christianity, but may in fact contain a hidden cross or symbol of Christianity. Other times, the statue can be rather obvious and outright, by displaying her with a very animate child that can be likened to Christ. Her clothing also typically reflects the style Mary is displayed in, such as the white layered robes that cover her body, and sometimes head as well as a crown that adorns her hair. According to Helmut Brinker, author of The Secrets of the Sacred, quote, the presence of Kannon may have enlivened the statue with the compassion of Christ, Mary, and Kannon, transforming her into a gateway for underground Christians, end quote. From this statement and what I have observed thus far, 3 different elements of Christian practice emerge for this fusion of Kannon and Mary unique to Japan. Firstly, Kannon at surface level was physically likened to Mary to make Maria Kannon and therefore an accessible and safe image to venerate during times of persecution. Secondly, Maria Kannon interchangeably could be used as a vehicle, Kannon acting as a messenger to Mary, aligning with the post idea that the Bodhisattvas may have been a prophet in the Christian religion. This would indicate that there are technically 3 points to the path of salvation. First, believing in Kannon, trusting that Kannon will deliver us to Mary, and that finally, through our faith in both Kannon and Mary, we will finally be delivered to God in the Christian religion. Thirdly, the overall proximity of Christianity and Buddhism and their core values of compassion and devotion suggest greater cohesiveness than I previously thought in Japan. While I believe it would be quite easy for a Buddhist to readily embrace Christianity because it has so many tenets followed in Buddhism repackaged as Christianity, I don't believe it would work the other way around quite as easily. The only caveat to this practice is that Christianity demands absolute adherence to a greater power, making it impossible for a Catholic Buddhist to exist. However, It may be easier to entertain the idea of initiating a sort of syncretism as a Buddhist Catholic without infringing on the first commandment, "You shall have no other gods before me." Stephen Turnbull, in his book The Kakure Kirishitan, expands on this possibility, quote, "Notions of purgatory could be understood in terms of the obligation of ancestor worship. The celibacy of the clergy could be seen in the light of Japanese notions of ritual purity, and the Virgin Mary could be identified with the goddess Kannon," end quote. Turnbull additionally addressed that while older views viewed syncretism in a negative light, other viewpoints pointed out that religion has always been adapting, as it had to, when it arrived in Japan during a time when it was not quite welcome. While I acknowledge that my research is not without its limitations, I do believe I've accomplished the primary goal of my thesis, which was to begin exploring the relationship between Mary, Mother of God, and the Buddhist deity Kannon, their significance amid anti-Christian sentiment, and postulating the possibility of Buddhist Catholics in modern-day Japan. Thank you to Dr. Schultz for initially sparking my interest when he mentioned that I could find Christian canons in Japan. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks.